From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Hello and a very warm welcome. It's 9 p.m. IST and we are coming to you live from the WION headquarters in Noida, India. I'm Molly Gambhir and this is Gravitas with a new look but the same old spirit. Let's get started. A lot has happened in India over the last 24 hours. The election results are now clear, but questions still remain. Will allies handcuff Prime Minister Modi in economic reforms? What's really brewing? What are the allies saying? This and more dissected in our top story tonight. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show. Hezbollah says it is ready for an all-out war with Israel. What does that mean for the entire region? And can Hezbollah take on Israel? There has been yet another flare-up in the South China Sea. The Philippines has accused China of illegally seizing food and medicine airdropped to a Filipino outpost. We also get to the story of a viral video of an American lawmaker. And no, he is not the reason why the video has gone viral. His son is. This is a story you do not want to miss.
तीसरी बार जनता जनार्दन का प्यार We are in NDA.
It's been over 36 hours since the counting of votes started in India, and we have a clear picture right now. The BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party, does not have the majority it once enjoyed. A resurgent opposition has humbled the BJP. The allies have turned kingmakers. And to form the next government, the BJP will have to be buoyed by its allies. specifically two of its key allies, Chandrababu Naidu's Telugu Desam Party, TDP, and Nitish Kumar's Janata Dal United, JDU. For the first time, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will have to practice what's called coalition dharma. And if history has taught us anything, a coalition always comes with its own set of challenges. Do the allies really have the BJP's back, or will they handcuff Prime Minister Modi on reforms? That's our question tonight. Prime Minister Modi is expected to be sworn in for a record third term on the 8th of June. A day after the election verdict saw the BJP lose its majority in parliament, key allies pledged their continued support. Today, two allies in his National Democratic Alliance coalition, the TDP, a key regional player in the southern state of Andhra Pradesh, and the JDU, which rules the state of Bihar, pledged their support. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the first time that Prime Minister Modi will need the support of regional allies in such a way. That would not be a problem, except their loyalties have wavered over the years. These key allies of the BJP have campaigned against the BJP not too long ago. The TDP's Chandrababu Naidu and the JDU's Nitish Kumar are two leaders who helped found the opposition bloc, and then they quit the alliance over internal squabbles and rejoined the NDA. Having allies whose loyalties have been tested could complicate the Modi government 3.0's reform agenda. First of all, a weakened verdict for the BJP could slow down India's fiscal tightening. This is according to ratings agency Moody's. Furthermore, both regional allies, the TDP and the JDU, are considered pragmatists on economic policy. PM Modi's new government will need to find money to fund more spending on the promised welfare projects in their states. What's more, there could also be challenges for the more ambitious elements of the government's reform agenda. Yes, the broader policy will continue to persist. Modi government 3.0 will retain focus on ease of doing business measures and gradual fiscal consolidation. The BJP lost ground in rural areas. Now investors worry that land and labour reforms, which were expected to unlock value and growth, could fall apart. And then there is the question of political policies. Without a majority of its own, the fate of some policies that were expected to be on the top of the BJP's agenda, such as the contentious Uniform Civil Code, hangs in balance. The UCC, as it's called, calls for the formulation of one law for India, one law that essentially would be applicable to all religious communities in matters like marriage, divorce, inheritance, adoption. But you see, not all are on board with the idea. Prime Minister Modi's regional allies are seen as much more accommodative towards minorities. Will the UCC be put on the back burner? We don't know for sure. For now, the allies have the BJP's back. The TDP chief, Chandrababu Naidu, told reporters right before heading into a meeting with the NDA partners that he was still with the NDA. But Indian media reports say that the opposition bloc, which is only 40 seats shy of a majority, could approach the TDP for a post-poll alliance. While that remains to be seen, what we did get today was a family photo of all the NDA partners, a picture of unity. The NDA partners unanimously selected Prime Minister Modi as the face of the NDA alliance. Now the question is, can he rule a government dependent on other parties, something that he has never done before? And I ask that question because the allies are well aware of their importance to the BJP now. In fact, in his victory speech just last night, the Prime Minister made a special reference to Naidu and Nitish Kumar's importance to the BJP. We won't be surprised then if they have a list of demands for the BJP. Remember, the BJP won 240 seats, the number standing at 293 seats with its allies. And that is enough for the NDA to form the government, but not enough that it gives the BJP a significant margin of error in dealing with allies. The loss of 16 MPs from Naidu's party and 12 from Nitish Kumar's party means that the BJP-led NDA government, should it be formed, could collapse or at least fall into the minority. But what about the other allies? Can the BJP rely on them, or will they also have a list of demands? LJP founder Ram Vilas Paswan was known for switching alliances before polls, all with the goal of maximizing his party's influence and gains. No matter what, he always ended up on the winning side. The question is, will his son Chirag Paswan carry on the late Ram Vilas's legacy? With 5 Lok Sabha seats secured, including the bastion of Hajipur, Chirag can claim to be a significant voice representing Bihar's Dalit population, just like his father. Chirag Paswan has made it clear that he does not believe in the politics of bargain and will continue to support Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But behind the scenes, Chirag could reportedly bargain for at least a ministerial berth for himself. If the opposition bloc approaches him and promises him 1 or more major cabinet berths, will he really let that opportunity go? The opposition bloc held a key meeting as well today. In fact, at a press conference last evening, Congress party leaders Mallikarjun Kharge and Rahul Gandhi both said any decision to approach the kingmakers would be taken jointly. After the meeting, Congress President Kharge said that the mandate was against the BJP and that the opposition alliance welcomes all parties. And this just proves that the stakes have become higher. Given how Naidu and Nitish Kumar are both seen as unreliable allies, what can the opposition bloc promise them? Neither Chandrababu Naidu nor Nitish Kumar have said much. They were both present for the NDA meeting in Delhi today. The elections may be over, but the politics begins now. The next war in West Asia could be breaking out. Hezbollah says it is ready for an all-out war with Israel. Can Hezbollah take on Israel? What happens if the war breaks out? Will America rush in to defend Israel? What about Iran? Will it join the war as well? And what does all of this really mean for the entire region? Let's start off with the latest. This is Sheikh Naim Qassem. He is the deputy chief of Hezbollah. He told the media that Hezbollah is quote-unquote ready for the battle and will not allow Israel to secure any victories. What battle is Qassem referring to? Let's just draw out the map of West Asia for you. This is Israel. That's Lebanon to its north. Now, Hezbollah is an armed group that's based out of Lebanon. The group is backed, trained and armed by Iran. Basically, Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy. It is part of Iran's axis of resistance. Now, ever since the start of the Gaza war, Hezbollah has been exchanging fire with Israel. So Israel's northern border has been on the boil for 8 months now, basically. There have been exchanges of missiles. There have been few casualties, but there has not been an all-out war yet. Now, that is what could change. The Hezbollah leader says, and I'm quoting again, any Israeli expansion of the war on Lebanon will be met with devastation, destruction, and displacement in Israel. If Israel wants to fight an all-out war, we are ready for it. You see, things have been escalating in the recent days. On Tuesday, for example, Hezbollah claimed that it had launched one-way attack drones at Israeli military barracks. It was the second consecutive day of such attacks, Hezbollah said. On the other side of the border, Hezbollah's rockets have set off massive wildfires. Have a look. Large parts of land have been gutted in Israel. We have visuals of rescue teams fighting fire in northern Israel. Even warplanes dropping fire suppressants. Israel's Park Authority says fires have spread across thousands of acres.
2, לפתוח לפני בבקשה.
For months now, border towns have become frequent targets of Hezbollah's rockets and drones. Many of these towns have had to be evacuated. Some 60,000 Israelis have been displaced. Back in Lebanon as well, at least 90,000 civilians are estimated to have been evacuated. At least a third of them are children. But this evacuation has not guaranteed an end to the death toll. Earlier this week, 2 brothers were killed by Israeli fire in southern Lebanon. Separating the similar sorrows of the two sides is a blue line, an impassable electrified fence that runs 120 kilometers along barren hills. Scattered on the border are blue pillars. The blue line was set by the United Nations in 2000. This was after Israel withdrew its military from southern Lebanon. But the demarcation line could not stop Israel and Hezbollah from fighting a war in 2006. Today, people from both sides of the border are looking at each other with fear. Is another war breaking out? Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his country is prepared for strong action in the north.
Yesterday, the ground was burning here, and I'm glad you put it out. But the ground was also burning in Lebanon. Whoever thinks that they can harm us and we will sit down idly is making a big mistake. We are prepared for a very strong action in the north. In one way or another, we will restore security to the north.
Say a war breaks out tomorrow. What happens then? Can Hezbollah even take on Israel? The armed group has a huge arsenal of rockets. Reports say Hezbollah has upwards of 150,000 missiles and rockets. And what's the range of these rockets? They are good enough to hit all areas of Israel. That's what Hezbollah claims. In fact, reports say Hezbollah has Iranian rockets like the Fajr, Zilzil. In the last few months, Hezbollah has fired Katyushas, even Burkan missiles at Israel. Hezbollah, in fact, also has drones in its arsenal. These are mostly locally assembled models like the Ayub or Mirsad. These drones, in fact, are believed to be cheap and easy to produce. And then you have the anti-tank missiles, which, by the way, Hezbollah used extensively in the 2006 war. And since the war, Hezbollah has reportedly also acquired Russian-made anti-ship missile. We're talking about the Yakont missile. It has a range of around 300 kilometers. The group also has anti-aircraft missiles, anti-ship missiles. The Hezbollah has received most of these weapons from Iran. Now, coming back to manpower. As per the CIA World Fact Book, Hezbollah has some 100,000 fighters. In other words, the armed group is capable of causing damage. What's more, reports say Hezbollah is bringing in more sophisticated weapons. The question is it in preparation of a war? Fears of a third Lebanon war are on the rise. And let me tell you what Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said during his visit to one of the wildfire-affected parts. I am quoting Ben-Gvir. They are burning here. We need to burn all of Hezbollah's strongholds and destroy them. War, quote unquote. The US is calling for a de-escalation in the tensions along the Israel-Lebanon border. In fact, the US and France have been trying to chalk out a diplomatic solution to the Hezbollah-Israel conflict. The proposed plan involves moving Hezbollah's armed forces over 6 miles north of Israel. Hezbollah says it will not be agreeing to any diplomatic deal with Israel, not until the war in Gaza stops. Hezbollah has also said that it will not stop firing missiles at Israel till the war in Gaza ends. When is that happening is the question. US President Joe Biden is pushing for a 3-phase peace plan. But so far, there is no word on whether Netanyahu is on board. Hamas, we know, says it views the plan positively. All eyes are now on Bibi, who instead is now talking about a strong action in the north. So where does this story go from here? Is this the start of another war? One that stands to draw in more powers? Look at what happened in Lebanon today. The US embassy in Beirut was attacked. As per reports in the local media, there was gunfire. It lasted almost half an hour. Reports also saying that a member of the security team of the US embassy was injured. Lebanese security forces have reportedly detained an attacker. We are being told that the attacker is a Syrian national. But he was not acting alone. Reports talk about at least 4 other attackers being involved. So far, no group has claimed responsibility. The US Embassy has put out this tweet. It says small arms were reported near its entrance in the morning. What you have here basically are escalations pointing at dangerous possibilities. That US President Joe Biden and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu do not see eye to eye is no secret. But today, President Biden has spelled out the problem with Netanyahu in no uncertain terms, by the way. In an interview to Time magazine, Biden said that there is every reason to believe that Netanyahu is dragging the war in Gaza for his own political survival. When questioned whether he believed Netanyahu sought to prolong the conflict for political purposes, Biden said, and I'm quoting here, "There is every reason for people to draw that conclusion." Biden, you see, has given voice to a widespread belief in Washington that the Israeli Prime Minister is using the war as a buffer against blowback. You see, Netanyahu's popularity has plummeted after the October 7 attack by Hamas. It exposed serious flaws in Israeli security. Months later, the Palestinian death toll in Gaza has shocked the world and raised serious questions about Israel's conduct. 2 international courts, the ICJ and the ICC, have also put Israel on notice. And what's more, Netanyahu is facing growing pressure at home and internationally to accept the new ceasefire plan for Gaza, a move he is resisting over fears it will lead to the collapse of his government. According to political observers, Netanyahu would lose the elections if they were held now, would be forced into opposition and face court hearings on corruption charges. But elections cannot happen during war, or at least until major military operations are deemed to have been completed. And so, staying in office is Netanyahu's best chance of evading prosecution for corruption on charges that he denies. But how long can Netanyahu actually evade accountability? How long can Netanyahu sacrifice peace at the altar of power? On Friday, the Israeli Prime Minister was forced into a corner, that too by none other than Israel's staunch ally, US President Joe Biden. He unveiled a new truce and hostage release plan, which he said was an Israeli proposal. So far, Netanyahu is yet to publicly endorse the plan. And this is despite the fact that it was supposedly an Israeli proposal. But members of his far-right government have threatened to quit should the plan be adopted. In fact, today, Israel announced a new military campaign against Hamas in central Gaza. Airstrikes killed dozens of people in the Palestinian Strip at a time when talks between US and Qatari mediators were underway to finalize a truce deal. The armed wings of Hamas, as well as the Islamic Jihad, say they were fighting gun battles with Israeli forces. Since Tuesday, at least 44 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli military strikes. Which then brings me back to the American president's comment about Netanyahu. You see, Biden's decision to spell out in detail Israel's plan underscores his growing impatience. There has been a logjam in the talks to secure the release of hostages. Sure, Biden acknowledged the pressures facing Netanyahu, but relations between the two leaders have become increasingly strained in the recent months, especially as the war drags on. The Biden administration has grown frustrated at some of Israel's war tactics. The Biden administration admits that Israel's war conduct does not include strict enough protection for ordinary Palestinians. But Biden said in the Time magazine interview that it was not clear whether Israel's actions constitute war crimes. And that's an allegation made by the International Criminal Court when it issued arrest warrants for the Israeli leader. Still, Biden did say that Israel had engaged in activity that is inappropriate. As per reports, several U.S. officials believe that Netanyahu's unwillingness to end the war shows his fragile political standing. Netanyahu is in a precarious situation, to say the least. And once investigations into the security failures of the October 7 attacks begin, the Israeli Prime Minister's position could be in peril. After all, an end to the war in Gaza could mean an end to Netanyahu's political career. In the interview, Biden declined to place the blame on Netanyahu directly for any security failings, but he did state his principal disagreement with the Israeli leader. It was Netanyahu's refusal to begin planning for post-war Gaza and his rejection of an eventual Palestinian state. He said, and I'm quoting, "My major disagreement with Netanyahu is what happens after. What happens after? What does it go back to?" He said, adding later, there needs to be a two-state solution, a transition to a two-state solution, and that is my biggest disagreement with Bibi Netanyahu, quote unquote. It's clear as day that Netanyahu has an interest in the war continuing. He knows that Israel's staunch ally, the U.S., will be vulnerable to political pressure until the election process is complete in November. He knows no serious decision is possible until a new president is sworn in by January next year. So does Netanyahu think he can wait out Biden in Gaza? Does Netanyahu think that Biden is the last U.S. president who will pressurize Israel to accept the two-state solution? But it is the Palestinians who are paying a heavy price for the politics. Now, the non-profit group Oxfam has warned of appalling conditions in Gaza. Children are going for a whole day without food. Thousands are even sharing the same toilet. Oxfam said that more than two-thirds of Gaza's population is estimated to be crammed into less than a fifth of the territory. Despite Israeli assurances that full support would be provided for the people fleeing, most of Gaza has been deprived of humanitarian aid as famine inches closer. The aid agency said that according to a food survey in May, 85% of children did not eat for a whole day. 85%. Can you believe that? Since Israel launched its ground assault on Rafah on the 6th of May, an average of eight trucks per day have entered. Oxfam warned that by the time a famine is declared, it will be too late. Families in some parts of southern Gaza, which has been designated a humanitarian zone by the Israeli army, were getting by with barely any water or sanitation services. Living conditions are so appalling that there are just 121 latrines for over 500,000 people. 4,130 people have to share the same toilet. With no access to clean water, people are forced to rely on the sea. The death toll has also risen. Since the war started, Israel's retaliatory offensive has claimed the lives of 36,550 Palestinians in Gaza, mostly civilians. A lot is happening around the world. A lot is being said in parliaments around the world. But it is a 6-year-old who has stolen the spotlight in the US House of Representatives. This 6-year-old does not have anything to say on Gaza or Ukraine for that matter. He does not even much advice for Americans except that they should eat more candy every day. Our next report getting you the complete story.
It's quite common for a parent to take their child to work on some days, especially when the nanny has called in sick, the partner is not in town, and there is no one to take care of the young child at home. So what do? Pick your laptop, hold your child's hand, and take her or him to work with you. Also, pack some coloring books, puzzles and toys with the hope that they will keep your child entertained. You reach work and ask your child to sit next to you and do her or his thing as you get through your day at office. But what happens when the office is the country's parliament and your child is in no parliamentary mood? Meet US Congressman John Rose. And as you may have guessed, the little boy behind him is his son. Rose is a Republican from Tennessee. He was in the House of Representatives on Monday discussing a rather important issue.
Whether they be Republican or Democrat, for Donald Trump or against him.
That's Donald Trump he's talking about. What does a 6-year-old know about Trump or care about his conviction? Little Guy Rose was more excited about the camera staring at him. So, he decided to make the most of the spotlight. The little boy leaned into the frame and started making silly faces, one after another. At one point, Guy realized he could do more than just make silly faces. The congressman continued with his speech, unaware that his limelight was being stolen. 6-year-old Guy has just graduated kindergarten. He's now spending a week with his father in Washington, D.C. Guy says he does not really know what his father's job is. All he knows is, before entering his father's office on Monday, his dad had told him that he was going to be on camera, so he should smile at his younger brother who was at home. Guy obviously decided to take the smile a notch higher. He says he was trying to make his little brother laugh. In fact, it was little brother's name that Guy was signing out. His little brother is called Sam. S here, A here, and M there. Guy has now become an internet sensation. Netizens say they have been watching the boy make silly faces on repeat. On Tuesday, Guy returned to work with his congressman father. One reporter asked him, "What's your message to America?" And all Guy would say is, "Eat more candy every day." Bureau Report. WION. World is one.
Northern India continues to scorch under a heat wave, and if you think only human beings are getting affected, then you may want to think again. The misery of animals often gets unnoticed, but they are equally affected, of course, if not more, by the extreme heat. Case in point, at least 32 wild monkeys have drowned out of desperation for water. Some reports are putting that figure at 40. This happened in the state of Jharkhand. Exhausted by the heat, the poor monkeys were only trying to quench their thirst. The sources of water in the area had all but dried up, so they had to come out of the forest and turn to an irrigation well in the village nearby. The well had plenty of water, but the monkeys ended up drowning in a bid to drink that water. Their corpses were later fished out by the authorities. A few days ago, the same incident happened with 3 jackals. They were wandering in search of water in a forest. They also were found dead in a well. It's a pity. The entire area of the incident is reeling under heat wave conditions, temperatures hovering around 44 to 45 degrees Celsius. And it's not just Jharkhand. The Indian Met Department has warned of heat wave-like conditions in Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, East Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Odisha. Under such circumstances, there is an increased need for provisions to save animals from the heat. Some states are actively doing that, in fact. An elephant rehabilitation center in Tamil Nadu installed foggers to keep the tuskers cool. Have a look.
Hey.
The elephants are taken for bathing almost 20 minutes every day, and we have a special mud bath which mimics the natural condition of mud bathing for the elephants. And we also have foggers installed. Foggers in the sense they sprinkle water which increases the humidity, especially in Trichy where the air is so dry. We need the humidity to be increased a bit so that it gives a cool environment for the elephants.
Meanwhile, a vet in the Indian capital is treating birds for cases of heat stroke. His name is Haraftar Singh. Listen into what he had to say.
With increasing temperatures, the birds that we see, most of which are pigeons, are suffering from heat stroke. Mortality rates for birds have increased due to the heat wave. So we should keep bowls of water outside for birds to prevent heat stroke.
And as for human beings, over 100 people are suspected to have died this summer. Nearly 25,000 have suffered suspected heat stroke. More than twice as many heat wave days have been recorded in northwestern and eastern India as usual this season. This is mainly because of fewer non-monsoon thunder showers, warm winds blowing from neighboring arid regions into India. Meanwhile, other parts of India are being battered by a recent cyclone and heavy rainfall. On Sunday, India's tech hub Bengaluru received 111.1 millimeters of rainfall. It's the highest recorded for a single day in June since 1891. TV footage showed vehicles and pedestrians wading through flooded streets. With the onset of the monsoon in the southern peninsula, Kerala and other adjacent areas are expected to witness heavy rainfall. You see, some parts of the country are scorching as a result of the heat, while others are being inundated. What explains this? Is it human-induced climate change to be blamed? There has been yet another flare-up in the South China Sea. The Philippines has accused China of illegally seizing food and medicine which was airdropped to a Filipino outpost. The incident took place at Second Thomas Shoal in the Spratly Islands. The area, which has become a flashpoint between the Philippines and China, Filipino troops are garrisoned here on a grounded Navy vessel to assert Manila's claims to the waters. But it does not sit right with China. There have been a series of confrontations between the two vessels to the two countries in this area, often during Philippine resupply missions to Second Thomas Shoal. Something similar happened this time as well. A package containing food and medicine was reportedly airdropped at the outpost. It was meant for Filipino troops, but according to the Philippine military, two Chinese boats allegedly came within 10 meters of the Filipino vessel and seized the package. The military has accused China of aggressive and unprovoked interference. After seizing the package, Chinese personnel on board the boats reportedly dumped the items in water. What did China have to say to that? It hit back at the Philippines, insisting that the Sierra Madre was illegally grounded on the reef. It also urged Manila to stop making trouble. Listen to this for yourself.
With regard to the situation on Renai Reef, China has repeatedly stated our position. I would like to emphasize that on the Renai Reef issue, the Philippine side is the party that has continuously infringed upon, provoked and intensified the conflict. We ask the Philippine side not to renege on its word and not to create trouble.
You see, Philippine resupply missions are usually carried out via sea. And the reason the Philippines turned to airdropping supply packages was to avoid harassment from China. But that too seems to have failed now. Earlier in March, there was another incident, by the way. Manila had called it the most serious incident yet. What happened exactly? A Chinese Coast Guard vessel collided with its Philippine counterpart. Footage showed the Chinese vessel went on to shadow the Philippine ship. The Philippine Coast Guard vessel suffered some structural damage, but the Chinese were far from done. Around an hour later, they attacked a Philippine supply vessel. It was blocked and harassed by the Chinese Coast Guard and the Chinese maritime militia. The boat was then water cannoned. Its windshield was shattered. Its crew was injured. The Philippines South China Sea Task Force claims a top admiral was on board this vessel when it was attacked by the Chinese Coast Guard, and he was unharmed. The Philippines said the Chinese vessel sailed towards its boat. It made dangerous maneuvers, and that led to the collision. But the Chinese Coast Guard claimed it was only taking what it calls control measures against illegal intrusion by the Philippine ships. But how was the Philippines intruding? Second Thomas Shoal, you see, is about 200 kilometers from the western Philippine island of Palawan. It is over 1,000 kilometers from China's nearest major landmass, which is the Henan Island. And yet, China lays claims to the reefs, as it does for almost the entire South China Sea. There is a new civil war in the world of sport, and while oil wealth is involved, it's not the Saudis in the thick of it. The champions of the Premier League, Manchester City, are suing the Premier League itself. The English giants claim there is discrimination against the Gulf's club ownership, and they have launched an unprecedented lawsuit against the Premier League.